We do work hard, and we do a lot of transactions, and they can make a lot of money, but
right.
I just want priorities to be in place.
And being deliberate about what you do is kind of how you can move forward and grow anyways, right? If you're just all over the place, it's hard.
Yeah.
And mentors, I've been in a mentorship program for over 2 years now.
Oh, nice.
And it's a whole life aspect, not just the money and career, but there is other aspects of it, like fitness and health and spirituality and family and relationships and travel. So there's different gardens that we look at, and if you're not succeeding, or if you're only succeeding in the money part, you really got to evaluate it if you really succeed at all, because if your family doesn't respect you because you're always out and on the road. And we travel a lot, but how do we balance that of, okay, now we go on family trips and spend the time on the weekends with the kids. So it's it really is. And then if your health, if you're not in shape, all these things add up, make a difference.
100%. Everyone knows, like, you don't hear people on their deathbed say, like, I wish I just did one more deal.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Blueprints to Punch List Healthcare Edition. I'm your host, Dave Grosz, co-host Ken Fulmer.
How y'all doing?
And today we're joined by someone who knows the real estate side of the journey as good as anyone. Ashley Walker is a partner at Millennia Partners, leading their healthcare division and helping medical groups, developers, and investors find and create the right spaces to serve their patients across Central Florida. From site selection to leasing strategies, Ashley brings a hands-on perspective to what makes healthcare projects succeed, and sometimes where they can go sideways as well. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming in. We had chatting here before the show, getting started a little bit, but we always like to start things off with just a recent win that you had. And it could be family, business, health related, just something that comes to mind in the last month or two.
Yeah, so I would say it's been a good year. So last month for March, I did 14 million in transactions, which was great. And we all know, though, that those weren't all sourced in March. And so to see some of those come to fruition was really good and helpful to help the client. And one of those is Boyd Development in Hamlin. So I represent them for their medical developments out there. And we were able to get one of their buildings closed. And as you guys know, I mean, that project is one of the second fastest master plan development in the country. And so to have that close, getting through the zoning and the construction delays felt like a really, really good win. And then on the personal side, my daughter just turned 9, and so we were able to take her on a Disney cruise. And she also just had market day at school. So third graders got to test their entrepreneurial skills and design, create a product, make it themselves. And so she did Play-Doh made from melted crayons. And got to watch her, handle that herself, put them in, packaging and create labels in Canva and, go sell her product.
That's really cool.
She had a great time with it.
Have you guys been on a cruise before?
We have. We've done an Alaskan cruise and a couple other, like Royal Caribbean and Disney. We did Disney when they were a little bit younger. And so I think she had visions of doing that again because she had such great experience. But this one was a little tough because there was no interest in princesses or any of it. And I was like,
that makes the Disney
I don't
thing.
think I was ready for this. But she was into all the Marvel, like Superman fist bumped her. And she's like, I'm never washing this fist. And I was like, okay, at least there's something that still, excites you about the Disney cruise. So it was great though. They do it the best.
I've heard great things about Disney cruises, especially obviously with kids, right? They know how to kind of set it up for kids and the parents.
I was never a Disney person before I had kids. And I'm like, no, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
We just went on a cruise too. It was with the MSC cruise lines.
Oh yeah.
And it was our first kind of trial 3 night, just kind of see how it goes.
Yeah.
And the kids absolutely loved it. So
Did they go to kids club?
They do. They
Yep.
did. Yep. They did not want to leave.
That's the best part. I
It
always
is.
treated kids club like a treat. Like, if you're good, I'll let you go.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're like,
But you know they're gone.
But you're going.
Make sure you're good.
Well, it's funny because with the cruises and just travel planning, so I'm going to Europe to visit
Yes.
some family,
Yeah.
and my wife and I are coming up with the itinerary of what we need to do.
Mm.
And she's like, "Can we just go on a cruise?"
It's so much easier.
Right. Right.
So much easier.
You buy your tickets and go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure it all out.
I haven't been on one in a long time, but I think we're looking to go on one here soon.
Yeah,
I hear
it's-
great things.
It's the best, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So, I guess just diving into your how you got to where you are today a little bit, you can share. So what drew you to the industry initially, and just how did you get started in commercial real estate?
Yeah, I would say my path was very crooked and all over the place to commercial real estate, but I think a lot of people's are. I don't know too many that set out to be in commercial real estate from the get-go. I was in college waiting tables and resenting the fact that I had to work full-time and go to college. I wanted the full college experience, but that just was not my story. And one of my regular customers was a real estate developer, and he was talking to me about some projects they were working on. At the time, it was a Stennis Space Center in Mississippi.
Which is where you're from?
I'm from Alabama,
Alabama.
but I mean, it was, an hour away and getting redeveloped. And so there was a lot of growth happening over there. And he offered me to come work, for him. And so I did that. And it was lot assemblage. So getting landowners to sell their properties, and it could be 100 different landowners that you're trying to get to sell. But once they do, you collectively turn it around and sell it to home builders. And so that's what we would package together. And what I liked about it was the freedom and flexibility. And it gave me the time to feel like I was having a bit of a college life, because I could get my work done. It wasn't your typical 8 to 5 where I had to be in an office all the time. It was just, get it done. And I know I work hard. I'm going to have the results. I'm kind of just an overachiever by nature. So I liked that. I liked that as long as it relied on me and my efforts, I got the flexibility that I wanted. And so I did that for a little while and ended up going back into corporate once I graduated college, and kind of got on the sales path. I was a corporate trainer. I got promoted to a national sales director, and I loved it. I had like a glass office overlooking the golf course, had my name on a parking spot, unlimited time off. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm in my 20s. Like, all these guys are in their 60s, and here I am, and it was great. I was getting to manage 10 sales managers across the country and 170 sales reps, traveling a ton, making great money. All of it was great, but I couldn't enjoy any of it. And so there was this, like, I made it, but yet what did I make it for? And I don't know, I think just, early life lesson of figuring out, like, that's really what you want. Like, what do you really want out of life? And kind of reach what would be considered a pinnacle and realize that wasn't it. Mm-hmm. And so I'd kind of gone back into a career of healthcare software sales and just selling directly. So that way I had more, flexibility and autonomy. And I liked it, but I didn't like selling a product. I didn't want, that one product had to fit everybody. And that's just not me. I'm not a car salesman where I could just sell you everything. I like to cater it more to what you need.
Right.
And so I ended up merging the two, and going back into commercial real estate. A friend of mine had medical office buildings that they needed help with leasing. And so I kind of got started back into that, and I had a lot of relationships. And so for me, it was flexibility and, the time value of money, and just understanding that I can get this all done, make a good living and provide for my family, but also have the work-life balance that is very important to me. So I learned the lesson in my 20s, and then I made sure to do it differently the second time around.
Yeah. Work-life balance is important.
It is.
I kind of, I think everybody comes to that point, hopefully, right? That you
Hopefully.
came to, that it's like, what is all this for? I'm working, great. How do I get to enjoy it, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's,
was very career focused. Never even considered having kids in my 20s. And I was all about a career, which was great
Mhm.
until it wasn't.
Well, sometimes you have to find what you don't like in order to actually find what you do enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got tired of my friends saying, like, hey, we miss you. Or, like, my husband was like, when are we going to see you again? And so after a while, you're like, yeah, why am I doing this? I don't get to see anybody. And it's not as fun as I thought it would be. I mean, it's fun on the career side, but you don't want that to be all that you have.
Yeah.
So then how did you transition? So it was because of that medical office that you started in, got that taste of leasing and in the healthcare space. Did it continue in healthcare, or was it, again, a zigzag line?
No, it kind of happened to me just from the relationships. So I just built the business almost by accident with physicians and helping them either expand, relocate, buy, invest, and just built my network of people. And it just so happened to be physicians. And so I work off referral a lot. That's most of where my business comes from. And physicians refer.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do is who they're comfortable working with, that's who they refer to somebody else. And so it just kind of naturally snowballed from there and kind of created a niche before healthcare real estate was popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I was flying under the radar, like very happy with commercial real estate and specializing in healthcare. And I think people at the time kind of thought healthcare was like a waste of time or just something they didn't want to deal with because of physicians. Like if they're having to, they'd rather deal with businesses, and companies and corporations. And so, and I get it, but I enjoyed it, and it's who I was comfortable working with, and so that's what I did. And then the pandemic happened, and everybody realized how recession-proof healthcare real estate is, and then more healthcare brokers kind of came out. But yeah, I've always enjoyed it. I'm glad the niche I created turned out to be a good one because it happened by accident. I really didn't plan it, but it's been great.
Yeah, relying on those existing relationships to build on that network, and landed in a really, really good arena there.
Yes.
Yeah, and anytime you build relationships in anything, fortunately, it worked out that it was a sector that would withstand the pandemic. But still, it's about relationships, and you would have found a way to pivot and make it work if.
Yeah.
I know for us, we saw there was this period of like, the pandemic hit, and there was this period of like, all right, hold on. But for us, it was like maybe a week, right? And then all of our medical clients were just full tilt.
Well, people had a lot of money to spend still.
Yeah.
So there were investors pulling out of the stock market to still buy real estate.
Right.
And what were they going for? The things that weren't closed. You can't shut down a medical office.
Right.
And so I was home. My kids were out of school. They were like 4 and 5, and everything shut down. But yet business was crazy. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
All right, we're just gonna do this.
Yeah.
No. It was pretty insane.
Yeah.
Didn't have a choice but to figure it out.
And we figured it out. Yep.
So when a physician now comes to you and approaches you about maybe opening up their first clinic or expanding, what are some of those first steps that you walk them through?
Really, the first thing I want to do is understand their business. I want to understand what they're looking for. I want to understand the flow of the office, because for me, like kind of going back to selling a product, which I don't enjoy, it's more about tell me the problems, really help me understand who you are, what you're looking for, because then I can go and more efficiently find what you're looking for. And I feel like that's where I can add value versus just pulling any medical office space that's 2,000 square feet in Central Florida and sending it to you in an email. And then you've got to go through all of those. And so what I like to do is just really understand what they're looking for, whether it's visibility, whether it's a certain layout, expansion, needs for the future, and then catering it to that. And so that's really the first step, because sometimes they think they know, like sometimes clients think they know what they want, But as we start talking about things, and just because of my experience, I might can help them either save money, or maybe it doesn't have to be as big of an office, or maybe we can do this, and that way I can help them and provide some more value than them just saying, well, I was told I need 2,000 square feet, so give me 2,000 square feet. I feel like that's just kind of order taking, and that's what I tell my team. It's like that. Then you're just taking orders, and if they can take you out of the process and it's still the same,
right?
Because you didn't add value.
Email the listings over, and but understanding and so how is that different than some of the other spaces in
I would
the
say
needs of a healthcare?
Yeah, I would say the requirements just for medical, it's very specific. There's terminology. There's just things that I know from working with them for so long that they need. And retail people are the same way. They know what their retail groups need. So I think it's just understanding your niche and what the client expects. But medical, we've seen a transition from there used to be the medical office buildings on hospital campuses, and those were your providers. And so you went to them wherever those were. And now we have seen a shift where the providers are going to the patients. And so they're going out into the tertiary markets, and they're expanding and having multiple satellite offices because patients want convenience. They want access. And so in order to be competitive, because there's a lot more competition now, that's what they're having to do. And so we're seeing them move a little bit more towards, we've seen some medtail a little bit already. Not every medical office group needs foot traffic. So they're not all going to be in strip centers that need a walk up, traffic, but they don't all need to be in medical office buildings either, and so we've just seen that shift over the last few years.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about that same thing, more localized approach to healthcare. And we've seen that, conferences we've been at, obviously looking at the market here, talking to you, more of that centralized approach, and you bring up a good point, the convenience aspect, right? We live in a world that if you can make it convenient, you have a competitive advantage.
Yes. And patients, they're just not traveling as far anymore, even for the specialized care that, used to happen.
Right.
Especially because we're now bringing that to them through, and you mentioned not everybody needs medical office space. A lot of our projects tend to be in strip malls that used to be an old retail store that now closed down. They have the parking, they have the location.
Yeah.
It's just much easier. Now there's other challenges that go along with that, but the overall doesn't need to be just a medical office building.
Yeah, and then, to your point, important to understand what they need, right? And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of folks out there that don't take the time to understand what people need and what the need of the business is. But, some healthcare providers can operate in, like you said, a strip mall that's business use, business occupancy, right? Others who are doing procedures have certain thresholds they need to meet. It's a different animal, it's a different beast. So understanding that is very important.
Yeah, and just being able to speak their language, I think that always is helpful to establish trust and credibility, and knowing what they need versus, just trying to do a cookie cutter approach of commercial real estate in general and applying it to medical. It's so specific.
You find that it's there's analogies between between commercial real estate and residential real estate, the big difference obviously, but within the commercial real estate field, is it still a big difference between the retail to office to medical to?
Yeah, I think you see with since the pandemic, there's been a lot of redevelopment and restructuring of properties. So a little more vacancy in office than there was before. That's coming back, but there's in retail as well, different uses. And so what we're finding in medical is demand. So there's demand, but not a lot of supply, especially in the high demand markets. So the high growth markets have a lack of supply on the building side. So what's the next thing we're going to do? Are we going to wait, 18 months to have a new building, which is also going to be expensive right now for both the developer and, either the buyer or the tenant? Or are we going to redevelop something existing? And so then you're looking at kind of repurposing these buildings that are that are there and need that adaptive reuse.
Your team focuses primarily in Central Florida, correct?
Yeah, we do the whole state of Florida, just not Miami.
Yeah.
But
We're with you there.
but yeah, that's what we focus on. We're very busy in all of those areas, but mostly Central Florida. Yes.
So how has this market maybe shifted in the last couple of years?
It's exploded. I think everyone, knows that. But there has just been so many people moving, which it's putting more of a strain on the healthcare needs as well. So you've got just more population, 1,000 people a day, coming to Orlando. And so you've got to then prepare for that with the infrastructure for healthcare services. So you see these hospital systems creating those freestanding EDs in local markets. And then also independent providers, going out to those practices. But we've just seen tremendous growth, and it's kind of hard to keep up in a lot of ways. But that's the challenge that we're facing, is just helping these physicians and the hospital systems get into the markets that they need to service the communities.
And do you mostly see folks coming in looking for, say, second gen spaces that are already built out, or are they looking to come in and start new?
So that is cyclical, and it all depends. So I would tell you that probably 2 years ago, we were heavy into new construction. And it was right around the time that costs had gone up, from the pandemic, and we were still dealing with supply chain issues and getting transformers or electrical panels or anything like that would hold up, getting a CO on a building. But we saw a lot of demand for that. So new markets, new spaces, and it's because there was no supply in these markets, and now right after COVID, those were built, and so now they're ready. So now they're ready to be built out. The market was thriving. It was one of the busiest times that we've seen, and so people were building out spaces pretty frequently. I would say in the past year and a half, that has slowed down drastically. So the shift has gone because of construction prices, because of delays. I mean, developers are having to increase their pricing just to make the numbers work, which then of course goes to the tenant or buyer. And so there's just been a little bit of a pause while everybody's waiting for things to settle down. And so we've seen more of a shift to second gen spaces or purchasing. So purchasing has not really, I don't feel like has seen much of an effect, even with interest rates where they are. We've been able to do a lot of purchase deals, but it's the gray shell build outs that have been difficult because the TI allowance needs to be so high at that point for these doctors to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and you mentioned challenges in overcoming these difficulties that come up throughout the course of trying to get a physician group into a space. One thing you mentioned, or one thing I've seen you mention before, is your stick-to-it-ive-ness.
Like
Where does that?
It's not a word, but it's a word my dad created. But stick-to-it-ive-ness is what he kind of always preached to me, which was, not giving up when it's difficult and do things, do them well. We rely heavily on our faith. And so we feel like we work as unto the Lord. And so no matter who's watching, you do the right thing. And so that is just something that's been ingrained in me since I was young. And I've just had to always work it. I don't know. I always have my dad's voice in the back of my head, living that out.
I think that's important. I have not been a commercial real estate professional, but I hear especially so in the commercial real estate industry.
Yes, I told you guys before this started, in the beginning I wanted to quit every other day. And anytime I hire someone, I tell them the same thing. And they affirm me later that, yes, you were right. I do want to quit every other day.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, but it's because it's so difficult. I love control. And you really don't have much control. I mean, you can influence and you can do everything that you can. But at the end of the day, we have to let the chips fall where they may. And so sometimes you've done the absolute best, you could, and everything makes complete sense, but it still doesn't happen for, an unbeknownst reason or just a reason we don't agree with necessarily.
Yeah.
And you just gotta.
And maybe it's for the better sometimes. The deals or the projects that we don't getting awarded is sometimes you look back and
Some
like,
of the best.
it's a good thing we
It doesn't get your time back, but
Indeed.
it may have saved some scars down the road at least.
There's always a learning opportunity, I feel like.
Yeah.
We've had some of those where we had really big deals that, I mean, we got to the finish line, something happened, it didn't work out for us, but then the next person just got to like take it. And you're like,
it's all teed up. Right?
I did all of that. But man, you know what I learned? So much education during that experience that now has served me well in the future. And you just see it come back to you and you're like, okay, it wasn't for nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be about like the financial gain or the award, like you got it. Like
learn something in the process, grow from it. And, all in all,
definitely.
It's a win.
Lessons along the way is what ultimately, if we don't learn what we're supposed to learn, I think these challenges just keep resurfacing until we get that, until we figure it out that, wait a minute, it's supposed to be for our benefit to learn,
right?
Not keeping the same mistakes.
Part of the stick-to-it-ive-ness, my dad's big dream was to go to law school when he was younger, and unfortunately, like his LSAT scores just weren't high enough. But I ended up going to law school and kind of felt like that was our dream together. It was probably one of those, looking back, it was probably like my dad's like heavy influence on me as a kid, and I was like, okay, I'm going to law school. I want to be that too. And when I got accepted and I was about to start, there was trial team auditions, and my dad had just been diagnosed with cancer. And it was such a weird, moment, because it was like the highest of highs and then the lowest of lows, where it's like, okay. And he, lived in Alabama, so it was 8 hours away. I'm an only child. So it was like, you felt this burden to like help my mom but I also needed to do this. I'm like, this is our dream. I gotta, make him proud. And so I remember going through that process, and my dad was very much like me. We were very similar in regard to like sales careers or management, leadership, coaching. And so anytime I had a presentation to do or anything, he would always be the person to help me like practice and give me like feedback. He's like, well, this is how you can tweak it, make it better, or do this, and it was just something he's always done with me. And so that was the first time I didn't have him, because during his treatment, he like lost his ability to speak for some reason. And so it really required me to rely on just what I'd already known, and like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do it well. And I got to tell him afterwards, and I made trial team, and it was a cool way to celebrate. But then, 9 months later, he ended up passing away, and he passed away the week before finals. And I had to schedule my finals for the week after. So like 2 weeks from when he passed away, and I had to go home and like, take care of all the stuff for my mom. And that was one of those situations where my dad took care of everything. So he did not do a great job of communicating where passwords were or what bills got paid and how. And so my poor mom was just in the dark, which I was also in the dark. And so navigating that and then coming back and just having to kind of compartmentalize and go, okay, you've got to finish well. Like, this isn't the time to quit, and we're going to at least finish and do what we can. And by the grace of God, I passed all those finals. Not really sure how. But again, I felt like the best way, to honor him and what he had taught me was to kind of continue that stick-to-it-iveness, even in that moment. So it's just something that's kind of built into me.
Because you had that choice of either saying, I'm going to just put this on pause, which a lot of people do. So I think that, that is it's one of those, moments for you. It sounds like that it was almost like that pivotal, just really hit home, and that was the moment of like, all right, this is my time to go and get it done.
Yeah. I mean, there was times I thought about like, why go back, but no, I wanted to do it, and I was grieving before, and I paused, and then I went back to grieving, and
stick to it.
Yeah, it was great
to see it through and get it done. And in the midst of all that, that's a lot.
It was preparing me for this career.
Yeah, there you go.
And life. I mean, life is full of
that's true.
Ups and downs, and
100%.
any, take career out of it. Like you have so many things. I just, one day you're doing great, and then next thing it's like, you blew out a tire and there was an accident, and it's just, you couldn't have prevented that.
Right.
But you were on the high, everything's going great, you got a raise, and then the next day, boom. So it is, even though it's, not necessarily our podcast conversation, I do love having mindset conversations because that's a huge part
That's a
of
big part of it.
Of everything.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing that up and
Yeah.
sharing, and kind of going back into that memory lane a little bit.
Sure.
Do you have any examples any specific examples that come to mind and maybe a deal or something that helped you through that, use that stick-to-it-ive-ness through
The tough one.
the tough ones? Yeah.
I try to block those out, but I mean, I think a majority of the deals there's very few that are just easy. I feel like, but one that comes to mind most recently, because I was just at this open house last night, is a physician. I represented 8 acres of land in Winter Garden, and we divided that up into 2-acre parcels. And it was right on 50. And so we did a 7-Eleven ground lease on one with my partner, Brian Greenstaff. And then we also sold another one to a physician, a local neurosurgeon. And I leased out his medical office for him. We built 24,000 square feet there. And then the back 2 pads, one was going to be a hotel. And the other one, we weren't sure, but really wanted it to be a surgery center. And at the time, there wasn't a surgery center in Winter Garden. We felt like that was such a need. And so I had been introduced to a physician who was a bariatric surgeon, and she was looking for a new office and wanted to create this whole, surgery center. She had a great brand and name, and I loved her mission. And she was looking at Hamlin because it was like the new up and coming area. She had looked at some other sites as well, but when I started talking with her, and this is again kind of goes back to like talk about the vision, what are you really looking for? It just to me made sense. Like, I need to show you this site, and taking her down to that site and showing her like there's going to be it wasn't there yet. It was still dirt. So she had to just trust that we were going to do it. But, there's going to be a hotel here. So you've got patients flying in to have procedures done. Mm-hmm. Make a ton of sense. You're right here by 429 and the turnpike. So you've got great access. You'll have a hotel here, and then you can, have your procedures. I just think it makes a ton of sense for you. And, we met with the architect and she just ended up falling in love with it. And she went forward, and it was a great use for that site. It's now built a beautiful surgery center, and it's a multi-specialty, OR. So she can even have GI or orthopedic procedures in there, from other physicians in the area. So it still gets to serve the needs of the community. But she also created a med spa component, adjacent to the space. And so she just does podcasts, and she's very out there and new age and very high tech. She's just great. And one of those people that's just a trailblazer for what she's doing. And it's such a wonderful addition to Winter Garden. So last night I was able to just go celebrate her and see it, the finished product and her dream come to life. And it was a lot of bumps in the road because as with any, you guys know, new construction, nothing goes as planned. But
everything looks perfect on paper.
But I will say Construction Design Group and Dale Parsons, they got her in under budget and in shorter time than proposed. So that doesn't always happen. So that was a win. But just seeing that and walking through it yesterday, I was like, I love this. I love getting to help people's visions come to reality.
And sometimes not that was the most challenging, but I know we were talking a couple weeks ago. Sometimes the most challenging projects for us are when we look back on and say, that was probably one of my favorite ones, or most rewarding at least.
Yes, there have been some fun ones where we had environmental issues and that come up at the 11th hour, and you're talking with the attorney and you're trying to save the deal because everyone wants to bail, and we're in a 1031 and you can't bail, and
you're on a timeline.
you're just talking to a lot of people and calming everybody down and trying to get everybody on the same page. So that's a lot of what I do all the time. It's kind of hard to pick one of those.
It's like almost like all of them to a degree, right?
Yes. Yeah. But I love it. I mean, honestly, I get bored. So once if I like master a skill, and then it's like, okay, well, now what? So I love that about commercial real estate is it's always changing. There's really never a situation like that you have seen all of them. You know, where there's always a new situation where it comes up. It's like, oh, well, we haven't had that yet, and we get to figure that out. So I think that's fun, even at this point in my career. Like it's fun and challenging.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the value's added, right? Like to your point earlier, if they can remove you from the process and still get the same thing, then what's the point, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of the values typically added in the problems.
Yes, I try to make people see that because I really am passionate about coaching and helping like the next generation and helping them do this career if this is what they want to do, and especially women, because this is a highly male dominated industry as well. And so if there are women that want to get into it, I always like to help and help them understand that. But a big piece of it is you've got to make yourself better than if they went on a website and just clicked on the property and filled out a form and got all the information. Did you do any more than that?
Right.
Right. And sometimes they don't think of it that way because they think of them as, themselves as order takers and like, well, they ask this question, I'm going to answer it.
Right. All transactional and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're transitioning to a little bit of this coaching aspect of coaching other women that are coming into commercial real estate. Can you share a little bit about what that program looks like?
It's early, but we started, it's called the CRE Mentor. And so I have started in addition to the coaching, the commercial real estate business.
As if you weren't busy enough.
Right. I just thought I'd add something else to it. But, I think just a training for people getting into commercial real estate is helpful and something that is missing. And it's for people that are either looking to do a new career, they're in another industry, maybe they're already in sales, or they're from a completely different industry and want to see what it's all about, or already in commercial real estate or residential and just don't feel like they have enough tools. And so I just know I didn't have a mentor in this process. I kind of had to learn everything myself, which has kind of always been, what I've done through my career, and I'm fine with that. But I love being able to mentor. That's one of my passions is training and mentoring. And so, one of my associates, Danielle Covey, like she is a prime example of that, getting to bring her in from an outside industry and having no sales experience and being able to teach her every step of the way. And, it was painful for her along the way, I'm sure, because, I'm player coach trying to do this all at the same time. But she was fantastic and, ends up doing $15 million her first year on her own. And that honestly just is incredible. And that speaks a lot to her and her abilities, but also just what it can do if you've just got the tools, from the beginning and kind of get trained the right way versus having to grind it out. It's still a grind, but it's a lot easier when you have a little bit of step up. So that's what I want to replicate. And I want to do it for, anybody across the country or locally, but that's a big passion of mine is helping other people achieve like their dreams and be able to provide an income for their family, but also have the work-life balance, because that's been the biggest thing is trying to teach, the boundaries.
Yeah,
like
sure. Yeah.
overachieve, but do it within the boundaries.
Right.
And so you've still got your family life. You can still be a mom. You can still, be present. My kids, like they're number one, my husband and my kids, and they know that. And I show up, constantly for them. But at the same time, I'm also, super successful at real estate. And so balancing the two is something I feel like I've been very successful at. I've had too many people who are like, I want to do what you've created. I'm like, okay, well then, you know what? Let me teach you so you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So is this mentorship would be them working with you directly, or is it something that would be outside of Millennia? Or it's work, because you said anywhere in the country, so
they can do it's an online course, so they can do the course from anywhere. We'll also have group coaching, which is also online, so that can also be anywhere. And we'll take a cohort each quarter of applicants, and then a mastermind. And so there's that plan. There could be someone local that could potentially work on my team, and we could go that route, and that is kind of the plan, eventually. But really, it was just a broader reach of like who needs the help. And
So it's not necessarily just somebody looking to switch teams. It's somebody who's looking
Yeah.
either to get into the industry or maybe they want to get to the next level of leveraging your
Just commercial real estate
acknowledging.
as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, and they can obviously have, sign up for coaching with me directly, and that's an option as well. Yeah, like
That's
one-on-one.
awesome. Yeah, pay it forward, pass it on, and show
Yeah.
folks kind of what you saw in the industry, right? And give them the kind of roadmap.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. You're blessed to be a blessing, and I've just never been one to like only be about the money or a title or anything like that. I want to make a difference and make an impact, with my life. So I want to help other people do the same thing, and I think that would be, really cool for them because it'll give people a lot of freedom that they're looking for, and it'll be fun to watch them like what they do with their lives with it. So
It speaks a lot to your character and who you are. I think that's awesome that, a lot of people will make the money and have the success, but then aren't willing to necessarily give back and help somebody else along the way. And there's a quote that comes to mind. It says, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want, which is that time to be with your family and still have the boundaries, but still have enough success. So I think of it as go be a superhero, just be home by 5 o'clock.
yeah, exactly.
Be deliberate about what you do, but like you said, set your boundaries, pick your times, and be deliberate and work like crazy and do what you need to do in those time frames, but know when to kind of shut it off and stay true to those boundaries that you set, right? It's easy to get pulled in 12 different directions.
It is. It's a constant training I have to have with my team because it's it's countercultural. It's do more, up more from last year, and it's always pushing. And well, that's fine. I don't want you sacrificing what you love and what you want to just beat your goal last year.
Right.
Then you didn't really achieve. I don't feel like success.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying we're a charity. I do.
No.
We do work hard, and we do a lot of transactions, and they can make a lot of money. But I just want priorities to be in place.
And being deliberate about what you do is kind of how you can move forward and grow anyways, right? If you're just all over the place, it's hard.
Yeah.
And the mentors, I've been in a mentorship program for over 2 years now.
Oh, nice.
And it's a whole life aspect, not just the money and career, but there is other aspects of it like fitness and health and spirituality and family and relationships and travel. So there's different gardens that we look at. And if you're not succeeding, or if you're only succeeding in the money part, you really got to evaluate if you really succeeded at all. Because if your family doesn't respect you because you're always out and on the road, and we travel a lot, but how do we balance that of, okay, now we go on family trips and spend the time on the weekends with the kids. So it's it really is. And then if your health, if you're not in shape, all these things add up, make a difference.
100%. Everyone knows, like, you don't hear people on their deathbed say, like, I wish I just did one more deal.
Right. I wish I had just a little bit more money.
Yeah, that's not what they say. And so I think having lost both my parents, at a young age, I'm very intentional, about that. And so we definitely work hard, play hard, mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get to that point? Because again, I love that. Again, maybe not the healthcare related topic, but I love to have that kind of a conversation around, like, how do you? Because I 100% believe that you got to be intentional in life with again, we just talked about every different area of or all these different aspects of it. So how did you?
A lot of trial and error. So a lot of doing it wrong. And, a lot of, like I told you guys before, I was very prioritized in my career and I loved it. That brought me a ton of joy and felt very accomplished. I also realized my identity was in my job.
Yeah.
And as you get older, thankfully the Lord kind of helps you realize that's not where your identity lies. And so I think learning that, so just age in some aspect, and going through it and seeing that, like, doing that wasn't as fulfilling.
Yeah.
It was cool for a minute, but then you're just like, oh, this isn't it. Like, there's still something. And so I think over time, honestly, the Lord just healed me of that, because I really had to, I left the job. I didn't tell you that part, but because it becomes such an like identity piece of me, I left. And that was one of the hardest things I had to do. And even knowing this, like, they didn't know I was going to leave. And I worked directly for the CEO, and he came in one day and he's like, hey, you know what? I feel like you need to make more money. I'm going to give you a $50,000 raise. And I was like, what? Like, who does that? I didn't ask for it. Like, right. I was already overpaid in my mind, I was like, okay, right. Well, this is great. But I'm like, no, I am not staying. Like, I know this like is a tactic before I even tell him. Right. And, so it was just a matter of, you got to push through and still do what, what matters. And what mattered to me was like my family and, and doing what I felt like was honoring the Lord. So I left and did that. And I think because of that, because I put the boundaries in place and started reprioritizing my focus, and the fitness, the spirituality, all those things, align. So having everything in alignment, I think over time it has just become natural. And, people on my team now will be like, but how do you not like stress about this? And I'm like, it'll be fine. Like, it's going to work out. Yeah, well, but like, I'm going to take the day off tomorrow because of, my kids are singing at chapel. So I'm going to be there. Like, I'm going to schedule that meeting around it, or you guys can be there and call me, or, if it's an important client, obviously we'll make exceptions, but generally speaking,
it's a family is the most important.
I'm going to be there. And, but I have, found a way to where my clients don't suffer, right. But neither do my kids. And so I don't want it to be a time where, cause you get one shot with the kids, and I just don't want it to be where they look back and they're like, thanks mom. Like, wish you had been around like everybody else's moms or whatever. And, that's heavy as a mom, just because you look around and you see the kids that their moms are home all the time and they're with them. And so you're like, oh, that's hard. But I also know that isn't my calling. And so I've got to live into that, but I can do it well where I'm at drop off and pick up, and I'm still, and they have to understand, you've got to be quiet in the car. Yeah. I'm taking this phone call.
I'm on a call.
And they're like, like, you don't understand. This could be a lot different. I could be gone all the time, but I'm not. Yeah. Just let me take this phone call.
Right. It's like they see you and it's like, well, no, she's not at work. She's not at work. Yeah.
But that doesn't go till, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. There's a cutoff.
There's a cutoff. And I think it goes back to, the being deliberate about your time. This is the time that I'm going to dedicate to work, and this is the time I'm going to dedicate to family, whatever it may be, right? And being deliberate about that time helps when, it's time to cut it off. It's like, hey, I've done everything I've needed to do, do. It's time to cut it off, and let's go focus on the family.
Yeah, I mean, and like, there's exceptions. Last night I was sending contracts at 11 o'clock at night because we had to get it done, and that's fine. After the kids go to bed, I'm back doing, what I need to do. But for the most part, those are in place, and they don't really see the effects too much.
But the stick-to-it-iveness still exists, right?
It does.
If you got to do it, you got to get it done. Get it done. Cool. Well, what would be like? Just curious if if providers are listening. What is one common thing that you see when somebody comes to you looking for a space, and you're like, well, I need this one thing. If they could just, what is that one important thing to nail down? Is it operational? Is it what's the need? Is it market? Is it what's kind of that one thing that is
that they're going to need for a new space?
Yeah.
So a lot of things, but I would say probably efficiency and layout. So I think if you don't have that and you're not thinking of your space like a patient, then you're going to have inefficiencies that will end up costing you money, down the line. And that could go from access that we talked about. So if you're not readily visible, if you're hard to find, if you've got to explain the directions because the map isn't going to take, you there, if your parking situation, they're going to have to walk really far. All those things, if you're not taking that into account, could cost you down the road. So, and again, it's a very competitive environment. And so kind of knowing that in advance of, what is your operational layout? What is your clinical flow that you want to accomplish here? And let's really maximize the efficiency of the space, but also think for the future. So one thing that they tend to not do sometimes if they are inexperienced in opening a new location is, well, I just, I've outgrown my space. I just need a little bit more. I need like 2 more exam rooms. Let's just do that. And maybe, they're signing a long-term lease, but they're not thinking about their growth plan and their strategy and knowing that, hey, in 2 years, you're going to outgrow this. But you're locked in for 5, right? So you really want to have that ability, whether you're negotiating an expansion in your lease, if there's an adjacent space, or if you're taking on a little bit more space than you need and you're time sharing a couple of rooms, which I help physicians do, because there is a lot of that, nowadays where physicians just need a room or two. Like, just get me over there to get in the market, get my feet wet, see if it's a good place for us.
Plug and play.
Yeah. So I think just making sure adaptive uses of their space. So they've got room to expand. They've got room for, potential ancillary services that they may want to offer, to offer more revenue for their practice. Mm-hmm. Just kind of thinking more than just the immediate need.
Right. So nail down your operational needs, really dig into that, understand what that looks like, and then into the future.
Yep.
What does 5 years from now look like?
Yes.
What does 10 years from now look like?
You don't want to be stuck.
You guys can really get into, all right, let's see what makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You also work with some larger healthcare systems. How do you approach those relationships?
Very patiently. So, yes.
A lot more red tape.
There is. And you just have to know that going into it. I mean, they're a big organization, lots of departments, lots of decision makers. And so really just, it's the same starting point though, understanding what they need and what are the service lines that you're wanting to provide, what are the markets that you want to be competitive, and, where are your competitors, and trying to help them, be 2 steps ahead. They're very good at trying to be strategic in that regard. And so lots of confidentiality. I mean, that's a big piece. It's a small world. Orlando is not that big when it comes to healthcare, real estate. And so
really Florida.
It's just not.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah,
and so, having that level of confidentiality and but also giving your client like the key insight of, where the markets are that they should be going and what that looks like can help you kind of direct. But just being patient, but knowing when to push and knowing when to kind of like wait. It's not going to be a quick process. So if you're just in it for the long run, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Don't expect the immediate feedback.
Yeah, it's probably not a this year thing. And that's okay.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to, like you said, when we started with your wins, is have to have these things in the pipeline in order to come to fruition. I mean, same with us. It's very rare that we get somebody to say, I got to move and be in 4 months. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is thought out, it's planned, and realizing when we do get those requests.
Well, I was gonna say we get them.
See, that's so good though, because I get the opposite sometimes where people come to look and they're like, "Well, I need to be in like tomorrow," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
well, you're a little late.
Yeah.
I need you with a 6-month lead time."
Right.
Depending on what you're looking for.
We can't do this in that amount of time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is not because it's just the permitting. You got to get through that process. And so can we build it out in a month? Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be
legally
difficult.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you got to get through all that. So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges when it comes to that, but it's just, different with some of these private groups and then these healthcare systems, the differences in with the way they can operate.
Yes.
Yeah. And where they operate out of is extremely important, right? And what that looks like, where they're located, speed to market. I mean, there's a lot of factors that play into specifically healthcare, medical side of things, that make it fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do the landlords having landlord flexibility, how does that play into getting these deals done? Because some are just like, this is not going to nudge. These are my rules and have to have these, but.
Well, that depends on the market. Mm-hmm. So, we always talk about buyers and sellers market, and So when there's plenty of supply and lots of demand, you can hold firm and just say, this is my price. And we've done that.
Right.
We know when a property, we've priced it well, it might be a little high, but it's market for what we have, and we're not budging. And they either pay it or they don't. And that's proved fine. When it doesn't work is when there is still that mentality, but the market's not in the same place. So the demand isn't there necessarily, or there are other complicating factors like interest rates or build out allowance or cost or loan, inability to get like a construction loan or things like that. So in those instances, yes, a landlord's inability to be flexible and wanting only the 5-year term or the 10-year term and not being willing to go, you know what? Okay, we'll do a 3. If you want to just be in this market, people are a little like cautious. We don't know where it's going to be in 5 years.
We're testing it out.
They want to see it's either income right now or maybe not at all for a year or two. So you're trying to help them weigh their options. If there's not a million people knocking down your door or even 10, for your space, let's talk about this a little bit more. So it's just helping everybody understand what the current situation is and getting everybody to get to the same page that still benefits everybody, but kind of getting them to see it from the other person's point of view. That's a lot of what I do.
As we're kind of getting wrapped up here, what's maybe the single biggest piece of advice you would be able to give to a doctor or physician group that are looking to expand into Central Florida?
I would say hire a commercial real estate broker that specializes in healthcare. But aside from that, it would be, plan. So really take into account what it is you're looking for, the long-term plan that we talked about, knowing what it's like from a patient's point of view. And there's a lot more now to practices where it's more aesthetically pleasing and it's about the patient experience and it's competitive. So you want that patient to feel comfortable and want it to be convenient. And so keeping that in mind, because that is where, we're headed, having, advanced technology in your practice with either touchless screen, remote entry for doors or different things like that are beneficial for practices, or even just the hand sanitizer or central hand washing sink if you don't have plumbing in your exam rooms. But all the things that we saw from COVID-19 and the pandemic of what that, brought about, the patient portals, they've got apps now that you can just schedule appointments, or you can request your prescription, you message the doctor. It's convenience, and if you're not in that and doing that, you're going to kind of get left behind. So any resistance to forward thinking and the technology piece of it, I feel like is going to be, a hindrance. But thinking of those things, because again, it is a competitive environment and you want to capture that patient population. And so offering services that are going to be, beneficial to them, but also with convenience and access. Yeah.
Convenience and bringing that hospitality component into healthcare. We've mentioned it's come up a few times on this podcast, but big push to make that environment more warm and welcoming.
Yes. It is not the stark clinical spaces anymore. Thank goodness.
Yeah. What you would call the institutional look, the medical look, is kind of gone away. So
you'll see like couches in the waiting rooms and like art and nice, all the nice decor. So
yeah.
Well, Ashley, this has been absolute pleasure coming in and getting to chat a little bit, learning a little bit more about your story and sharing. I've definitely enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great.
Where can people find you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Probably for commercial real estate, it's at Ashley Walker CRE. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then the coaching site is at the CRE Mentor on Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for your time. We might have to do an episode 2 here and
Let's
keep
do
going.
it.
But thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.